So step one is accepting this state of affairs. Isn't it? It's saying okay to that. And I think that's a very difficult thing for a person to do sometimes. It was very difficult for me to do. It was very painful for me to do.
It's admitting who you are, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what you are. That's it.
Yeah.
If you can't admit to that, then you're fighting against it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Because you never won before, and why should you win again?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got two parts to step one. Let's just get them on the board. I think, you know, I know it, for those that have kind of done it, you know, it doesn't hurt. This helps me just explaining it. You know, you can never do enough of step one. It's always good to revisit steps. You know, always good. It's not saying, oh, well, I'm revisiting because I haven't done it, or I haven't done it properly.
Yeah, it's an ongoing step anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
It turns into actively looking for reasons to use.
So we've got admitted. Oops. Admitted. Admitted, what would I mean? Powerlessness, isn't it? That we're powerless over the addiction. And then life is unmanageable. So we've got these two elements, 1 and 2, of step 1. I think if you admit you're powerless over your addiction, admit you're powerless over your problem. But don't admit that your life's unmanageable. You've not really admitted the first one, have you? I mean, that's silly, isn't it? If you got the first one, you can't possibly deny the second. But I think the reason it's in two parts is because some people can. Some people can think, yeah, I'm powerless over alcohol.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that, like, as long as, like, it's sort of saying, I've stopped drugs, so I'm alright to drink now. That's like what he's saying, isn't it? In a way.
Well, yeah, if
you know, if you don't put them together, and you take one and not the other, like what you were just saying, then that's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, do you know what I mean? I've stopped puffing now, so I can just go to the pub now, and as long as I leave puff alone, I'll be alright.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can say, well, I've got a problem with alcohol, right? But I've never had a problem with cocaine or heroin or cannabis, so I should be alright with them. Yeah? Well, no, if you've never had a problem with them, why shouldn't you be okay with them?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people out there that do that, it's true, do you know what I mean? I know, I've seen a lot of people come and go from this place and said, oh well, as long as I've put the brand down, I can have a drink and I'm alright, and clearly not alright,
no.
You know what I mean? They're just still lost, but they're just, in their mind, they think they're alright, but they don't know, like, give it a couple of weeks, maybe even a year if they're lucky, they'll be on it harder than they were in the first place. Because they'd be chasing it again.
Yeah. So I think that's partly why the second part, that your life's unmanageable, is very important. Because if you admit that your life is unmanageable, you are opening the door to help and advice. It is the beginnings of an open mind, isn't it?
Well, I think it starts from the first one, from admitting being powerless, because once you admit you are powerless, you have to drop all the defenses.
Exactly.
All the defenses that creates excuses and explanations or anything else. And that's where the acceptance comes from.
Yeah, but it doesn't say you're powerless over yourself. And I think that's an important point to make. It says the bit of yourself is your addiction that you're powerless over, and then life is everything and everybody else. Yeah? So that's what he's saying. There's a bit of you that you have no control over, and that's your addiction. which is fair enough. Yeah. And then your life, you know, everything around you, right? You can't manage it. And I think that's important on two levels. Number one is, if you try and, you know, manage all the family and the government and, you know, all the things in the car and this, that and the other, you're going to constantly be hitting failure and frustration and upsetting people. So, and, you know, on the other level is, if you need help with managing your life, because you have admitted that your life's unmanageable, it opens the door to an open mind, to new information, to transactions, to analytical transactions between other recovering people, between recovery books, between you and like a higher power or a spiritual sense. So you've got all these transactions then that you're open to, which is the point of doing this. My life is unmanageable. When I first tried to understand this, I felt that because I was powerless over my addictions, therefore my life was unmanageable, and that if I admitted this, I could get manageability in my life. Yeah, that's the way I sort of translate it, which is not an unreasonable way to think about it, is it? If I admit my powerlessness over my addiction, I will therefore stay clean and sober, which will mean that I'll be able to get my life in a much more manageable state of affairs. Yeah. And I thought that was quite reasonable, and that worked for me for a long time, actually, and it seemed to be true as well, you know. But there came a point in my recovery when it clearly was complete bollocks. That as much as, no matter how many years I'm clean and sober, I cannot manage my life. Life itself, I can't manage it.
And your life's your faults though, as well.
Ah, well this is where then I separated this out. It says my life is unmanageable. It doesn't say I'm unmanageable. It doesn't diminish me to being the victim of my own thought patterns and feelings.
So it's the people, place, and the second part of step one is what people refer to as
People,
step one
places,
people,
and
place, and things. Yeah.
Exactly. Not me. The bit of me that's unmanageable is my addiction. Everything else, every thought I have, every feeling I have, everything that comes out of my mouth, and every action I take, I can manage. And indeed, it is my responsibility to manage all those things. The only thing I make no attempt to manage is addiction to substances.